Hey, Captain Chris Meyer, Central Florida Sight Fishing Charters. And a lot of the wading and kayak fly fishing anglers I run into often ask me, do I know where they can get an extra long rod, because their back casts hit the water behind them. And they say that the reason that happens because they're so low down in the water, where the guys standing up in a flats boat don't have that problem because they're 4 or 5 feet above the water. And then by the time you get your rod tip up in the air, you know, you're way above the surface of the water, so you don't have that problem. So what I try to convince people who think that is, it's not about the length of your rod, it's about the direction you make that rod tip travel and come to a stop that determines where that line goes. If the line's going down in the water behind you, it only happened for one of two reasons. Either you stopped back there and didn't move and gravity pulled it down to the ground, or you told it to go down there by casting down in that direction. It's usually the second one and not the first one. So what I'm going to show you here real quick is how, with a 4.5 foot rod, that line's going to come absolutely nowhere near the ground behind me. It only goes out and down towards my target in the front, because it's the direction I move to a stop. I was traveling up when the rod tip stops, therefore the line always goes up. So if you thought you needed a longer rod for what you're doing, for normal fly casting with floating fishing lines, a 9-foot rod works fine. Even shorter rods will work absolutely fine, as you'll soon see. You don't need a longer rod, you need to adjust your casting style. So there you can see, using a 4.5 foot section rod, that made some casts standing up and almost sitting down on the ground with that 4.5 foot section. The line still was not touching the ground, which could have been the water behind me. It's because the rod stopped going up and it didn't stop going down. Most of the time, if it stops going down, it's because folks are breaking their wrist as they come back down. So the rod tip does this, and it goes around in a semicircle, or at least down in the back and up in the front, and down in the back and up in the front. If it's going down in the back, it's going to hit the water or the ground almost every time behind you. And in order to compensate for that, folks will be sticking their hand up, up, up. Next thing you know, you're casting with your arm up here, and you're still going down the back. Maybe it just doesn't quite hit the water. Keep everything right in here, direct it going up in the back. You can still use a standard rod. You don't have to search for that extra long fly rod, and it'll be much more fun and pleasurable to cast your fly rod.